Single-player games aren't dead, and this has been a great year for them. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the top 20 new single-player games of 2019. Starting off at number 20, it's Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Let's just go ahead and say this. When you first hear, hey, they're crowdfunding a spiritual successor to a game series that you absolutely loved but really has kind of fallen by the wayside, you think, oh, mighty number 9. Or at least I do. Bloodstained manages to jump over that thought and go, wait, give it a shot. And if indeed you are looking for the experience of an old school Castlevania game done with a very nice contemporary coat of paint, you need to look no further than this. It does it well. And I can remember almost like it was yesterday being worried about this game due to its graphical blandness. Well, that's just absolutely not a problem. The graphics of this game are great. It's just a pleasure at every moment. If you like Castlevania, there's no reason not to play this. And if you're too young to remember Castlevania, but like action platformers, this is something you have to try. It is just a tour de force as far as this genre. Moving on to number 19, GREEDFALL is a third-person RPG. It's about colonizing an island that is, let's say, mystical. It's a fantasy setting that actually comes off very different than most fantasy settings. And although the game carries a few minor flaws, it's definitely bold. It's trying something a little bit different in that it's portraying colonialism and kind of making you empathize with a lot of different groups of people, while not being the most annoying thing on the planet. And I'm not going to say that this is a Game of the Year contender or anything like that, but it's also a really refreshing title that gives you a different setting, a different premise, and forces you into a bunch of actually genuinely tough decisions that really make for an interesting experience. Coming in at number 18, Outer Wilds is a very different game. If you hear the premise, you travel across a bunch of different worlds and see the sights. It sounds very generic. Everyone's tried to make No Man's Sky at this point, but that's not what this is. This is a narrative-based game that does almost nothing to hold your hand, as you have to put together a lore-based puzzle to figure out how to get out of a time loop. It is a delightful experience, albeit sometimes it is a frustrating one as, again, like I said, there is no hand-holding. It's both liberating and sometimes frustrating at the same time. However, it's always rewarding when you make progress. And that's basically how this kind of game should be. Outer Wilds is phenomenal. I love the hell out of it. Moving on to 17, A Plague Tale: Innocence is a game that will take you for surprise. Basically, whatever you're expecting out of it, kind of toss out. I would say it's not really explicitly anything, but very brisk and very good at eliciting emotions, particularly fear. The general idea is you're basically trying to protect a kid during a plague. The plague is symbolized by rats that sometimes explode out of the ground. I mean, I said it was over the top and I meant it. But what's weird is it manages to never break immersion. This is an incredibly immersive game, not just because it's gorgeous, but because the gameplay is simple but not too simple, and basically keeps you on a track that is always doing something interesting. A Plague Tale: Innocence is basically the entire argument for linear games, and if you're interested in that, play it, period. It's wonderful. At number 16, Kingdom Hearts 3, and of course you know why this is one of the best. It's Kingdom Hearts. As far as third-person action goes, it is one of the standard bearers of any console generation that has managed to grace, and concludes our saga for us, for the most part, with more wild trekking through Disney and Square Enix stuff. Now, if you're thinking the story is going to neatly and easily wrap itself up, no, it's still quite complicated, but who cares? It's Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts plays so well. It is such a fluid and enjoyable game. There's no reason not to play Kingdom Hearts 3. Moving on to number 15, The Outer Worlds is a game that, now that we've seen a lot more of, really seems like something that's going to be special. The most obvious influence it takes is, of course, Fallout, as Obsidian developed the beloved Fallout New Vegas, and it very much takes a lot of cues out of there. However, you'll also see a lot of cues that will remind you of BioShock. The vending machines, for instance, gave me instant Circus of Values vibes, and the very capitalist, business-critical vibe of basically everything is right in line with Rapture. However, it's obviously much larger than Rapture, and obviously not as big as Fallout 4. In a lot of ways, honestly, this is kind of what I had hoped for out of Mass Effect Andromeda, except in first person. Everything I've seen of this game just oozes personality, and that's exactly what I want from it, so I'm really stoked for The Outer Worlds. I will be playing it on October 25th when it comes out. And at 14, The Surge 2. This game is going to be hitting us September 24th, and it looks to build on everything that made The Surge great, except the intent is to make the environments much bigger and add a level of verticality. At least that's what the developers have said, and truthfully, it sounds like a logical progression for what they're doing. Obviously, the game is a Soulsborne-like, but it's the deviations that really make The Surge special, and it sounds like the intention is to deviate a little bit further while retaining the same kinds of gameplay that made us like The Surge so much. It's basically the technology Dark Souls or Bloodborne, maybe even leaning towards Bloodborne a little bit more. So if you like any of those games, particularly Bloodborne, and like technology, this is something to play. I'd recommend going through the first one first. It's got some flaws, but it's really fun, and I totally love the world it takes place in. Very much looking forward to Surge 2. Number 13 is Shenmue III. This is a game a very long time in the making, and it's very cool to see it finally come to fruition. Now, it's also a game that I'm very confident that they've gotten right. To listen to the very humble Yu Suzuki talk about how he makes games suggests pretty specifically that he's gotten what he wanted to get out of this game. He's happy with it, he calls it several levels higher than he originally intended, and described it as a little bit faster than the older games to accommodate for modern audiences, but a little bit slower than most other games because, well, it's Shenmue. It's more or less a mystery, trying to track down an artifact, but really the point of Shenmue is that it gives you these beautiful worlds to walk around in and learn everything about. To call the original games a predecessor to Yakuza would be a massive understatement, because they're a predecessor to basically every open world game. And it looks like they've retained everything that made these games charming and frustrating at once, and that's something that I find very valuable. Shenmue 3 looks very much like a preservation as well as a progression, and that's exactly what I wanted from it, and I can't wait to play it on November 19th. Moving on to 12, Pokemon Sword and Shield, the new Pokemon games. I mean, there's not a lot I need to say for you to understand this. These are the new Pokemon games. They're the first Nintendo Switch full-blown real Pokemon games. The serious ones, the ones that don't change anything about the base formula of Pokemon, like Let's Go Pikachu, which I'm not insulting at all. It's a fine example of a Pokemon game, it's just definitely different. This, other than our visuals and most likely some other elements, is a traditional Pokemon game. I'm there for a new traditional Pokemon game that looks like this. Number 11 is Days Gone. If you're familiar with zombie games, this is kinda like the mother of them all. It takes so many different concepts and merges them into one experience in a way that, unless you understand exactly how far we've come, almost might not feel like a big thing, but it is a big thing. It's another one of those games that benefits greatly by a kind of lack of context. Like I said, it's sort of the sum of every one of those games, refined down to a single product that works really well. And if you haven't really caught up, it feels like something just totally new. However, if you've played a ton of games like what you would expect from Days Gone, the magic is a little lessened. Still, amazing open world, incredibly fun horde fighting, and really just a lot of interesting concepts all in one package. And at 10, Judgment. Oh my god, Judgment. Judgment is a Yakuza game that's different in enough ways to justify its existence. It takes a different perspective, for instance, in that you're a private eye and you're trying to solve crimes rather than do them. But let's just be clear, that's not why the game matters. The game matters because it's yet another one of these games, and it's dynamite. They keep making games that take place in this tiny little area, and it never fails to give you something new and something enjoyable. This one in particular gives you a lot of new mechanics like drone flying, for instance, and god is it ever fun. Just play Judgment, period. Moving on to number 9, Doom Eternal will grace our TV screens and computer monitors in November, and if you played Doom 2016, I'm stoked. Is it a perfect one-to-one recreation of Doom? No. But as for what Doom would be now, it's great. It's fun. It's like a carnival ride that doubles as a shooting gallery, that triples as a fireworks show. Doom Eternal looks to be taking that formula up a notch in the same way that Doom 2 did with the original Doom. And there's a grappling hook shotgun. For me, that's all you need to mention. Right there. That's it. Grappling hook shotgun. I'm in. It's more and bigger Doom. What could you possibly not want that for? And at number 8, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is a game about a Jedi Padawan that has to try to stay alive after Revenge of the Sith when it's ordered that all Jedi are killed. That to me is an intriguing concept, but it's really a lot of first impressions that have sold me on this game. It's an EA game after all. However, it's being made by Respawn, and according to a lot of people who played it at E3, it actually feels right. I've seen comparisons to Uncharted as well as Dark Souls, and that's a nice range of products that I would like to see this kind of game take on in its influences. Visually, it's easy to be reminded of The Force Unleashed, however, it does have the weight to it, and I think that that's where the Dark Souls comparisons are coming from. I'm excited personally. It comes out in November, and in theory, it's got a ton of potential. I have high hopes, and I look forward very much to playing the game. Coming in at number 7, Fire Emblem Three Houses. Really just a fantastic strategic RPG that nails it in every possible way. It's a fairly different version of the story that you would expect from a Fire Emblem game, but it really nails the landing. It gives you everything that you would want out of Fire Emblem, as well as the kind of school story that you might not expect to see. I didn't expect this game to be a life sim, but I'm stoked that it is because it nails it in so many ways. It felt like a bigger, more grounded Persona in a lot of ways. Obviously with a very different setting and a tactical battle system as opposed to a traditional JRPG one. But, oh, it's good. Coming in at number 6, it's Devil May Cry 5. The real Devil May Cry sequel, according to some, and of course that matters. It is definitely a superior game to DMC Devil May Cry, but we don't even really need to make the comparison. It's just such a wonderful complete package that gives you everything you could possibly want from the name Devil May Cry. It is of course on the next level as far as visuals go, being one of the more beautiful games to come out of Capcom, and they've been upping their game in recent years to say the least. It's the true successor to the original franchise. Well, like I said, don't want to dump on DMC. It's a fun game. It's not the same thing, and this is the logical evolution of the original series. Number 5 is Astral Chain, an absolutely delightful new game from Platinum Games. I did the before you buy on this one, and it is just a lovely, wonderful, fun game. It is what you expect as a Platinum Games game. It does do a couple of control change-ups. The gimmick of the game is the Astral Chain itself. You're basically chained to a monster and can control it to some extent and use the chain as kind of a weapon of its own. Truthfully, it is a delight. The art direction, the music, the heavy anime influences, it is so much fun, and you need to play it if you like anything from Platinum Games, anything even close to that. Coming in at number 4 is Metro Exodus, a continuation of the previous series. This entry, of course, being a survival horror / stealth heavy version of a first-person shooter. There's, of course, a lot of crafting, and with that comes the implementation of some sandbox stuff. Metro Exodus gives us somewhat of a combination between large-scale open areas and smaller, more linear areas. They give a nice, varied experience that's actually a lot smoother than it probably sounds. It's also exciting. It really does a good job of setting the mood of a nuclear winter, and the story plays out over an in-game year. It's exciting, it's fun, and it's unique. It's its own thing. Moving on to 3, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. The latest Souls-like from Software, the Soulsborne, Dark Souls, Bloodborne creators. I don't know how I could say souls are born more in this sentence. I'm actively trying to, though. Sekiro has this interesting thing where a lot of reviewers said it resembles a rhythm game in some aspects, however, without the music. I actually think this is a decently accurate statement. However, what really needs to be said for people unfamiliar, this is a hard game with very smooth, fluid combat that requires some strategy, and at the same time is just this beautiful, massive world that you can use a grappling hook to get around in. Is good, is beautiful. I don't know how you could like Dark Souls and Bloodborne and all of these types of games and not love this one. This is just a phenomenal entry in that From Software genre. Coming in at number 2, Death Stranding, which we finally kinda understand. I'm sure it's gonna confuse us in multiple ways, but at least we somewhat understand the plot now. Not that it matters, it's a Hideo Kojima game, and that's more than enough for me. But it's cool to see that it's about a sort of World of the Dead / World of the Living alternating gameplay element that will also serve as the main function for the story. I think it looks like a really fun game. It's very weird, but I'm ready for that. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of Metal Gear. I don't know that he's going to give us some sort of massive curveball as far as mechanics, but I'm so here for this, even if it bucks any expectations we have. And finally, number 1 is Resident Evil 2. I understand that this is a remake in every sense, however, it does so much different while retaining the feel, atmosphere, and important elements of the original that I think it kind of qualifies as a new game. I've seen discussion on it, and I want to say that it's its own kind of masterpiece. It should be regarded separately from the original, I think, to some extent. Not necessarily to the full extent, but it's such a valuable project, and the end product is wonderful. To take what is kind of a chaotic game and story and make it into something that really works, feels streamlined, and gives you everything you would expect from it, the Resident Evil 2 remake is phenomenal. It is every bit as scary, if not more scary than the original, and I just love every minute of it. Couple of quick bonus games for you. First, the Medieval remake. This is a game that presupposes the Dark Souls genre by a number of years and weirdly feels coherent with that. It's also got a bit of a sense of humor, it's silly, and it also has that look of a Tim Burton film. Similarly, the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake for the Switch is exactly what you're looking for if you want that, but for Zelda. It does take a totally different approach to the visuals, of course. It's many years later, it's a much more powerful console, but everything we can observe about this game feels right. It's beautiful, it retains the kind of gameplay that the original was, the top-down, but gives us so much more to look at. What do you think? What games are you playing this year? Single player specifically? My personal favorite are the ones that are already out, probably Judgment. Leave your opinion in a comment. If you like this video, click like. And if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.